And 3, 2, 1. We're live. Coach Lyle Henley. It's great to meet you. First, did you see that picture that I sent you with Nick Vogel?
I sure did, man. Vogeltron.
Yeah, he said
Vogeltron.
hi. He said hi. That was I went and visited his company today and spoke to them. So that was pretty fun. It was he was awesome. Super high
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
Great dude. Um and I'm just wearing this by chance, but I worked for the USFL when he kicked for the Gamblers, and I think he may have led the league in points if I'm not
Yeah, he
mistaken.
did. He did. Very cool. Yeah, he's one of the greats, man. He's monster leg, hard worker. You'd never known he was a kicker in the weight room. I mean, he got after it. No, I
Really,
love Big Vogel. Oh yeah.
I could see that because he just like when I from the moment I met him, all this positive, amazing
Yeah.
energy, and he was
Yeah.
just like it was 8 a.m. and he was boom sharp as a tack.
That's awesome.
Well, so I'm super excited to talk to you today because I
Yeah.
have grown up in Birmingham, gone to many UAB games. My dad went to UAB. I went to Sanford right down the road, and I've got a cool little maybe throwback. Y'all do this every
Oh
year, so
yeah.
I
Yes.
myself am a cancer survivor, and this is the special game that y'all do for Children's Harbor.
Yeah.
Spencer Brown jersey.
Very
This
cool.
just meant the world to me, so I thought I'd show that to you. It's like
That's
one of my
awesome.
most prized possessions. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk to you because you've been sort of around the UAB program and influenced it. Um, and you were there when it was brought back, and now you're sort of leading it and helping lead it into a new chapter. So for those who don't know you, could you sort of explain your background and your current position with UAB football?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, thanks for having me on, Sean. This is awesome. Can't wait to share a story and hear your story as well. My background was that as a college football player, I played at Louisiana Tech in the mid to late '90s. From there, I went to the University of Alabama as a strength and conditioning intern. After a couple years there, I went back to Louisiana Tech where I played ball. I was the assistant for a year, and then I got the head job. I was the head guy there. And from there, I had met my wife, who was at the University of Alabama. She's a former softball player there. And from there, we moved back where she was from on the Gulf Coast, down in the Fairhope, Daphne, Spanish Fort area. We began a company called the Athlete Factory, LLC. We were down there for 12 years. Eventually, we ended up with 4 gyms. My wife was a pitching instructor. We had an MMA gym. We trained athletes of all sorts, college, professional, and we ended up selling our business to D1 Sports Training. I went to them, worked for them on a national level, training guys for the NFL Combine, NFL veterans that were, some of them were partial owners in there. I had a lot of their training year round that came in all over the southeast and pretty much all over. But I had a good relationship while I was in Spanish Fort with Bill Clark. And I had done some consulting work with him. And when they brought the program back in 2016, he asked me to come lead the strength conditioning portion of it, and we ended up doing that. And so we've been at UAB ever since 2016 until we were here for the return. We've been here, and we love it in Birmingham. We currently reside in Pell City now, and just love everything about the program, the university, and all the coaches we've been blessed to work with, and all the players of these last 11 years. It's been special.
My bad. I was muted. As a strength and conditioning coach, what I'm super excited to learn about is sort of the culture that you might implement or you might see not only from a day-to-day basis, but maybe that you've seen year to year change within the UAB program. Because I know I used to work in football, and the strength and conditioning coaches are sort of able to be with the players almost more than the position coaches and the head coaches, which some people may not realize.
Yes.
Yes, it's real interesting, Sean. I would tell you things have drastically changed over the last 3 years with the transfer portal, as far as being able, the ways you're able to implement your culture. We had always been a developmental program. That was something that really drew me to coming to UAB. Was I was going to even get an extra 2 years before we started the return to be able to implement this culture, and I knew through the staff we had then, Coach Clark back then, I knew what he was all about. And so, we would have guys, in an average of 3 to 5 years at least. Most of the guys 5 years, especially early on, with having those 2 extra years of eligibility that were frozen. And so you're able to get those guys, and you have buy-in and buy-in and buy-in and buy-in. It takes time, right? So you've got to earn trust, and you've got to have skin in the game. And that is not necessarily the case now. Now you're flipping your roster in our level, 60 to 70 guys every year. And out of 60 of those guys, probably 20 of them, and probably 20 of the guys that you're planning on playing only have 1 year. So 1 year for us might only be 7 months that we have with the guys before we get into the season. Sometimes, 5 months, depending on when they arrive and they get cleared to participate in activities. So you have to kind of get to the best version of, culture in the shortest amount of time as possible. The thing is how can you get there and without skipping any of the crucial steps that you need, creating buy-in and those things. So you have to get really creative, and you have to set the tone early. You have to do it a little bit faster and a little bit more aggressively than you normally would. But then as you start to implement those things and you see the things start to change in the positive direction, you got to kind of take a step back. Normally you'd be hands-on all the time. You got to take a step back and let those leaders start to lead, because it has to happen fast, right? It has to happen at least by the beginning of the summer, so they can have the summer. We just got through an 8-week block of leading. So they're driving the car and then they're operating the vehicle when we get here in August, because eventually you got to turn them loose in September and they got to play.
Mhm. So did you always have the leadership, or your players leading prior to the NIL transfer portal era, or is this something that you alluded to as new?
It's not new, but the process happens faster, right?
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
We might not really start a leadership council, or we might have accountability teams that lead into a leadership council, like when the season starts. You've got to create that thing a little bit earlier. You've got to identify those leaders a little bit earlier. This year, I can tell you they've stepped up and made themselves known. You're not having to go search for them maybe as you've had 2 years in the past. So right now, we feel good about the guys we have on our team, because a lot of these guys have assumed leadership roles early on, because that's just the type of individuals you have on a team now. So, it always starts with a head coach. Right now, it started with Alex Mortensen, and it happened with, Bill Clark and all these coaches. And it starts with their vision. Then I take their vision and try to adapt that to the team. And it's a process. So you have to get that process. You have to get the ball rolling a little bit faster now.
What does it look like for a player to assume that role early on, like they have this year?
Well, it's hard. Those guys, they have to have the ability to call people out, and they have to do it in the right way. Right. So leadership is not something it's popular. It's not something that everybody is like, everybody's the cool guy, or everybody likes the guy. Sometimes people don't like the leaders because they're telling them hard truths, but with hard truths comes hard love. And with hard love, that produces the greatest results that we have. So we not only have to have these qualities of leaders, we have to have guys that have the ability to be led, so that you've got to find that balance. But those leaders are the guys who are consistently doing the things day in and day out. They are the same guy in the building every single day. I would say those are the easiest ways to observe those traits of the guys that become leaders.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That consistency and process oriented type of alignment, sort of like Sabanology, as people call it today, but it's always been there. the process, the correct process will yield the results you want. If you focus on the results, you're not really going to get anywhere. You might have dreams, but you've got to get in and do the work and stack days.
Correct.
So what does, and if you can share this, and if you can, it's no problem, but I'm curious to hear about Alex Mortenson's philosophy and culture and how you are implementing that specifically with the program.
You know, he was 9 years under Nick Saban, so you see a lot of those similarities. I don't know if there's few people in this setting that you can learn more from than a Nick Saban, with the success he's had on and off the field and the things he's been able to produce, especially from a leadership and a culture standpoint. Those years that Bama were so good, yes, they were very talented, but they also had. I've just been around so many of those players. I've probably trained over 20 of those guys that played through those championship years from down there in the Gulf Coast. They all said, they had the culture was the thing that built them through. So Coach Mortensen is building a lot of stuff similar to what he did. It's process driven. It's the ability to be able to self-assess. The ability to be able to put the team before yourself, and the ability to be able to focus on the process and not the outcome. The process being, statistics or whatever your playing stats are, and the process just being the work, right? So focus on those things right there. So Alex, he wants to have a disciplined team. He wants to have a tough team. He wants to have a resilient team. He wants to have the guys that are on the field and they're attacking and playing every single play, and they have the ability to, process things. And when bad things happen, are they going to be able to get back up and keep going and have short-term memory loss and keep moving forward? So all the things you're looking for in like a tough team that is very resilient are the types of individuals that Alex Mortensen is looking for.
Incredible point that I think you brought up, that I think I see not only in sports, but in the real world. You mentioned specific players that are able to get back up. So I sort of have two questions based off that. One, how, maybe not necessarily how do you find, or how do you, maybe it could be two questions, but how do you find those players? How do you coach and then teach those players who might be needing help in having that goldfish memory, as people call it, in football? It's such a tough game where if you throw an interception, you see it all the time. Players throwing down their helmets, sort of living in the past of that interception, to get burned or miss a tackle. It's difficult because a lot of it is mind games.
Yes. So one of my main jobs that I do, one of the main jobs of anybody that is a director of performance or strength conditioning, whatever you want to call them, on this level and most levels, is that I have got to apply stress to our players in the offseason and see of those players who adapts to stress the best. Do they resist against stress, or do they embrace it and find a way to push through it, right? So I've got to apply pressure. I've got to put them in tough situations. I got to see who rises to the top or falls to the level of their training, however you want to look at it, and who is able to push through those things. Number one, able to handle themselves and stay calm when the pressure's on. Number two, the ability of them to lead the others and bring them with them. So those are the two things that I'm looking for on leaders. And not only that, can they do it on a consistent basis? And when things get tough, and things are going to get tougher, everybody has their breaking point. Do they push through that breaking point, recover, and keep going?
Can you give some specific examples? You maybe not using names if there's some privacy there, but whether it's the challenges of coming back for reviving UAB, or going through a coaching change, or maybe a game that you lose in the final second. How to get the players mentally right amidst a challenge or a fall.
Yeah. There's challenges both ways. There's challenges obviously from a loss, right? And for us, it's a 24-hour rule. It's 24-hour rule. They're going to deal with a loss. We're going to move forward. We're going to come in the next day. We're going to watch the film. We call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. We look at it and we look at the good plays, the bad plays, and the really ugly plays. We learn from those, and then we flush it and move on, right? That can also be the same with a win. A big win is just as hard to recover from as a loss. And in that big win, we're going to come in and do the same thing, same process. Watch the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to celebrate. We don't want to sit there and bask in the glory for too long, because then the next team's going to come in. Anybody can beat you on this level. So if you come and have the biggest upset you've had in your life, you better look out next week. So I would say the difficulties of dealing with a big win are even harder than a big loss. You're going to naturally be motivated to come back after a loss. You want to prove everybody wrong. You want to show that wasn't you. You want to do that. The hardest things are coming when you start having a lot of success. And then can you keep that success? Do you not start... Do you sit there and like believe you've arrived and then think that you can't be touched? And then all of a sudden you get a reality check real quick. So there's highs and lows in both the wins and the losses. The secret to it all, and whether you do it or not, the secret to it all is going through the same process when you win and the same process when you lose, in recovering and reset, and then Monday you're moving towards the next opponent.
I think that's a good point, and sort of an underrated point. I think a lot of people talk about, this podcast is dealing with in life the falls that we have. A lot of people who are listening they might be playing football, but they also might just have 9-to-5 jobs where a sale doesn't go through that they thought would go through, and it's difficult. But we often don't talk about the other side of that.
Right.
Where do we check our ego at the door when we do something good? Because sometimes we can check the ego at the door after something great happens. Could be a win. I do lots of public speaking. Say I do really well on a public speaking gig, but then if I don't treat it as the same process going in the next one, I could maybe be overconfident and constrain myself to less practice time because I think, oh, I've got this. And then I could go fall flat on my face, right? And I think you see that in sports and in the season.
Yes, I agree.
So I'd love to learn another aspect about the team and really going back into that season. So y'all at UAB 2015 when y'all had the practice season?
2000.
Okay. So can you walk me through what a season is like when you're not playing games and only practicing, preparing for the next season? Like, to me as a player, I'd be like, I just want to get out of there and play, coach.
Right. No, it was tough, but I think what we did is we set the foundation for the success you saw in 18, 19, 20. That foundation was built in 2016. So you got to realize that, when I arrived there in basically the spring of 2016, there was only maybe 30 to 45 guys on the roster. So spring practice looked ugly. Now there's a lot of talented guys out there in certain positions, but they started adding as they went on. Here comes another 20 and another 20. And then all of a sudden, finally, when you get down to, August, you had a full roster, but you had guys that were coming in just week to week to week. And, you were able to take some steps back in the training process and slow cook and do things the right way. So we were, we're setting a foundation, not only from a training standpoint, from a culture standpoint. And then, as you start to onboard these the types of the offense and defense and all those things like that, you were able to take your time there as well. But, once you got to August, we treated it like we were playing in a season. And that was, Coach Clark was maniacally good at doing all the small things right, being unbelievable. One thing I learned from him is being just unbelievably prepared and organized in what we do. So I mean, we had mock scrimmages, we had mock pregame meals, we did everything you would do in season. And then when it came to Saturday, we would scrimmage and reset, and we staffed on Sunday. And we did that all the way through football season, all the way leading up to, I think we had our big game against each other, our big scrimmage, where the public was able to come and watch around like Thanksgiving, and then we shut it down and reset. So it was tough. It was hard, but like, I don't think, there's many people would tell you that they didn't learn that were part of that process, didn't learn a lot about themselves, and it didn't set the foundation for what we knew, what we wanted it to look like after that. And I think you saw that, all those things start to show up when things were successful. We had been kind of grounded and rooted in hard work and tough detail, but it was everything you would have in a season without the game. And we didn't pull back on anything else. And the tough thing is in football and in a lot of college sports, there's a lot of plagiarism involved, right? Everybody wants to know what the successful people did, or like if this team, say it was, University of Nebraska back in the 90s, like what were they doing like in season practice, and what were they doing here? Nobody had ever practiced a season before and not played. So it was tough. And so we didn't have anything to go off of, but we felt real good about, the work that was being put in. But, I don't know if I ever want to do it again, but I am so glad that I went through it.
To me, it sounds like you, the staff, and Coach Clark did an excellent job of really instilling two things in the players. I'm sure that there was more, but this just stood out from what you said. One, presence. I think presence is one of the most important things that we have in our entire life. That's why the earn the moment is right over there on the top right. That's the motto that I sort of live by, based in stoicism, that all you have is the present. And what you and Coach Clark and the staff were able to do was to put them through simulations of what a game week would look like. I think that there might be some coaches who are just like, oh, we don't have a season, we're just going to practice. But thinking about getting the players to just think about what's right in front of them, I think is absolutely phenomenal and something cool. And I haven't heard that story. And then the other P was patience.
Yeah.
This world, I think that now with the internet, transfer portal, NIL, amongst other things, not just in sports, patience has gone down for things.
Sure.
And I struggle with that as a young person. A lot of people do. But that season forces not only the staff to be patient, because I'm sure y'all want to go out there, knock some heads, play some games, but the players who have to wait a season, it might only be 30 players, but that's a commitment to commit a whole entire year to this program and not play, demands a certain level of patience that, to me, transcends the game. Those players can probably take that into their lives and into the business world, relationships, all of those important things.
Absolutely. I definitely agree on the patience side. The thing I can tell you is it was probably the best form of delayed gratification I've ever been a part of in my life. And we talk a lot to our players now about everybody now is accustomed to getting instant gratification, and a lot of those things aren't sustainable. They come at you fast, but those things aren't as sustainable in instant gratification. But if you're able to play the long game, and if you're able to work towards delayed gratification, those things are usually set in stone. And those are usually the things that you earn that stick with you for a long time. We want to play the long game. We tell the guys, however you can relate it to them, whether it's like the big monies at the end or the more meaningful relationships are set that are long-term, whatever that is. And those kids that were part of that season in 2016, 17, and so forth, they know the meaning of delayed gratification.
Yeah, that's amazing. My theory too on delayed gratification is oftentimes to receive what's on the end of that delayed gratification, you have to go through lots of tests where things are difficult, or even you fail, right? To win a championship, you might have to lose a game. You might have to suffer a couple injuries along the way. And oftentimes when we meet these clashes, most people, I think nine out of 10 people will just say, "Oh, this is too much. I'm quitting." But then the patience to just say, "Okay, we're going to get right back through it, 24-hour rule, go through the process and be back there on Saturday," I think is something that's a commendable testament to the UAB football program. That makes me excited to see where it's going to go under Coach Mortensen, and of course you sort of stewarding this culture for the program.
Right. No, it's going to be awesome. We're excited. We are very excited.
So I'll ask, because I want to respect your time, and it's already 6 o'clock over here in Birmingham. I have one final question. This is a question that I ask every single person who jumps on the show. So this is called the Cancers Podcast. And I myself, I'm a 4-time cancer survivor, and there's some link to that, but also I use the word cancers in the metaphorical sense. These are the pieces of adversity that show up in our life. These are the injuries, the losses. These are the tough times, sort of like the cancer in the locker room, to use a metaphor. How in your life or with UAB, you can take this in any direction that you like, have you learned from these cancers and turned these cancers into answers?
That's a great question, Sean. You know, there's to have so much success early on in the program, you know, for the first fight and just living in, you know, well, I'll just say I can go through different things that have my life. There's many things obstacles that everyone's had to overcome, right? Everyone's going to have those cancers, as you call them, you know, metaphorically, or, you know, and I'll just speak on my time at UAB, since kind of what this thing is where, you know, what we're talking about today. So, you know, having success early on, as much success as even more than we thought we could possibly have the first 5 years. And then the last 3 years of really struggling and getting through those things and asking yourself, you know, why haven't we been able to sustain this success? Why haven't we been able to push through? You know, and everybody blames this and blames that. We don't have this, we don't have that, where things are different, things that. It's just about, you know, it's always about the people, right? It's about getting the right people at the right time. Everybody now in this level kind of calls it, you know, catching lightning in a bottle, you know, having whatever that magic you found, and everybody's trying to recreate the success of you know, that we had in 1 year. Well, we did this year, or we did this year, and every coach that comes onto the staff has a different story of what worked for them wherever they were, right? And I think what you have to do is you have to lean into the things that were hard. You have to learn from those things, whether it be the cancer or whatever it was, and take the good with the bad, and say, you know, let's face these things head on. Let's not run from it. Let's see the, you know, what hasn't worked. Let's focus more. Let's focus a lot on the things that haven't worked for us and how we can get them better, and then turn that into a positive. So I look at, you know, all the stories from all the guys who've been successful here in the past, who've like gone on to. I do a series called Mindset Training in the summer with our players, and I tell the story of, you know, I start off telling the story of guys that ran up against obstacles, and the tales of what to look for and what's bad for you. And then I tell that as the summer moves on, I tell the stories of all the guys who have positive outcomes. But it's always been about, you know, are those guys able to overcome those things? And the main thing, I guess, to kind of wrap it up right here, is what we tell our players is, do you see opportunity in every difficulty, or do you see difficulty in every opportunity? So that's what it always comes down to for us. So of those things, there's always going to be a block in the road. There's always going to be a cancer. There's always going to be something. Do you see an opportunity when that happens? Or when something even good comes your way, do you sit back and see a difficulty, right? It's the half glass half full, half empty? Is it pessimism? Is it optimism? It's whatever it is. But you've got to embrace those hard things and ride the wave. And you have to be able, if you're going to sustain success, or if you're going to have them, you've got to see the opportunity in every difficulty.
Man, I'm fired up. I feel like I could run through a brick wall right now. That was awesome. I love that. That relates to, I think, so many people out there who are listening, as well as me personally. So I really appreciate you being honest and coming on and sharing some of the insights into UAB football and your theories on how the team culture works. I absolutely love that. I geek out on this stuff. That's why I do the podcast. And thank you so much. I'll be sure to come out to some games this year. Listeners out there, keep moving the chains in life and earn the moment and every opportunity you have.
Thanks, Sean. Hey, and thanks for your story.